Good evening and welcome to English News Bulletin here in Rwanda Television. I hope you had a great Wednesday. We'll begin with the headlines. On Wednesday, President Paul Kagame concluded his official visit to Qatar, where he held high-level talks with the Emir of Qatar, His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. Rwanda asserts that the claims filed by the DRC at the African Court on Human and People's Rights perpetuate a pattern of misrepresentation and externalizing its internal challenges. On the international scene, Pakistan rolled out the red carpet Wednesday for Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who is in this country for an official visit. It is always a pleasure to have you with us. My name is Olive Nete. Now let's kick off the edition. On Wednesday, President Paul Kagame concluded his official visit to Qatar, where he held high-level talks with the Emir of Qatar, His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. Their discussions focused on strengthening the long-standing bilateral ties between the two nations. During the visit, the Qatari state approved a draft agreement on mutual visa waiver for citizens of both countries holding ordinary passports. Once ratified, this agreement will allow Rwandan and Qatari nationals to travel between the two countries without requiring a visa. Qatar and Rwanda maintain strong cooperation in various sectors, including security, investment promotion, trade and economic development, technology, tourism, and anti-corruption efforts, among others. Now to more news. Rwanda asserts that the claims filed by the Democratic Republic of the Congo at the African Court on Human and People's Rights perpetuate a pattern of misrepresentation and externalizing its internal challenges. Furthermore, Rwanda maintains that the court lacks jurisdiction to adjudicate these claims. Emmanuel Munyarukumbuzi has more on this.
We are at the African Court on Human and People's Rights in Arusha, Tanzania, where a 2-day public hearing is taking place on the case of the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. The Democratic Republic of Congo accuses Rwanda for violating its territorial integrity. The case is at the face of preliminary objections where Rwanda thinks this court does not have the capacity to take care of a case like this one. Tomorrow, the discussions will focus on the admissibility of the case. Emmanuel Munyarukumbuzi, Rwanda Television, Arusha, Tanzania.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Now moving ahead, tomorrow the discussions will center on the admissibility of the case, and our colleague still Emmanuel Munyarukumbuzi had an exclusive interview with Rwanda's Minister of Justice and Attorney General, Dr. Emmanuel Ugirashebuja, on this case. We have more.
It's quite clear. It is an important role of this court, which was designated in the African Union, to entertain certain disputes of this nature, breach of human rights. But as we pointed out in our oral presentation, as well as in our written submissions, it is important that this court has such role, but it can only have that role within the mandate that it has been provided for by the Charter, the Human Rights Charter, and the protocol establishing this court. So our argument is this case is a political case outside the realm of remedying violation of human rights, because the argument by Congo is that Rwanda committed an act of aggression. These are normally cases of international peace and security and not human rights cases, the allegations themselves. So we do believe that yes, the court has an important role, but the applicant, the Democratic Republic of Congo, is trying to invite the court into a political realm on political matters that have nothing to do with the jurisdiction of this court. Politicization of courts by the Democratic Republic of Congo. You don't need to go further than to established that they've brought a case here in the African Court of Human and People's Rights, and they've brought the same case in the East African Court of Justice. Actually, they made a grave mistakes by filing a case, the first submissions in the East African Court, and at times they forgot to even remove the logo of the African Court. But you don't need to go further also from the statements of my counterpart, the Minister of Justice, and the Deputy Minister, who have been on record stating that they are going to take Rwanda to all the available courts in order to deal with the cases. And let me tell you that these particular filings were brought just before the elections, the presidential elections in the Democratic Republic of Congo, after statements had been done that they'll fight the war both on the ground and in all possible forums, including the courts. Normally, there are two conditions that should be achieved before the case even go further. We like to say that even a journey of 1,000 steps, you have to take the first step. So the first step in judicial matters is establishing whether that court is competent to deal with the case. That means what is the mandate of the court? That's the jurisdiction of the court. Then the second step normally is the question of admissibility. Given what the court has been provided with, are there pre-steps that should have been taken before the case comes here? Tomorrow, you'll hear from the submissions of the Republic of Rwanda that first of all, there was no established dispute, or actually it was discussed today at the time of this case, because you have to have communicated to that country, show that we have a dispute on the application of this particular treaty. But all of a sudden in the morning we just discovered that a case had been filed in different courts, including the African Court. Then tomorrow you'll also hear that there are certain procedures that you have to fulfill, including the exhaustion of local remedies in order to bring the case. So these are preconditions towards bringing the case. So in legal terms, that's referred to as admissibility of the case. So these are the two issues that are at the point of contention today. And that is before we go to the substantive matter of the case, after the court has made a ruling on these issues. We do believe that our case is strong enough, and if you followed the case, we actually relied on the jurisprudence of this court, the jurisprudence of similar international courts, very strong legal arguments which have been established over the years. So we do believe that this court will deem it fit to actually dismiss this case, because it's wastage of time not only for the court but also for us as the respondent, who should be doing other important jobs back home, to really come here to argue on very flimsy arguments by the court. So we do have faith that the court will deem it fit, on the basis of the arguments that we fronted, that they dismiss the case. It is possible also, it's a case of course that the court may find in favor of DRC, that the case is, it has jurisdiction and the case is admissible, but then we will have to deal with that when we'll cross the bridge when we reach at that particular bridge. Well, I didn't say that we can't sue them. The question is, can we sue them in the African Court of Human and People's Rights? And the answer is an emphatic no, because that's not within the mandate of the African Court of Human and People's Rights. But that doesn't mean that there are other courts which, if they have the mandate, we can actually bring a case before those courts and sue, because there's an egregious violation of human rights for many years by the DRC by supporting the FDLR, which actually has been designated as a terrorist group and has committed, has members who committed genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda.
Now moving ahead to more news, the commander of the United Nations mission in South Sudan awarded Rwandan peacekeepers for the contribution of its forces to peacekeeping operations. This is the case in South Sudan, where Rwandan forces continue to be exemplary in carrying out their mission. We have more with Adam Squizera.
deployed under the United Nations mission in South Sudan were today awarded United Nations Service Medals in recognition of their contribution to peacekeeping operations. The ceremony took place at the headquarters of the 1st Battalion at the UN base camp in Juba. The UN Force Commander in South Sudan, General Mohan Subramanian, who presided over the medal award ceremony, thanked the government of Rwanda for its essential contribution to UN peacekeeping operations and commended the Rwandan peacekeepers for their discipline and dedication in carrying out their duties. He emphasized that Rwandan peacekeepers from the largest peacekeeping contingent in the South Sudan and are therefore the backbone of the UN mission in the country. Brigadier General William Garassa, commander of the sector unit in South Sudan, stated that the 1st Battalion of the Rwandan contingent has successfully conducted various operations that have contributed to security and stability in the area of operation. These operations include patrols to establish connections with local security forces, monitoring human rights situations, gathering essential information for the protection of civilians. The Rwandan forces have also carried out community activities aimed at promoting cleanliness, health, and education, such as providing medical services to the local community, distributing school and hygiene supplies to students, as well as tree planting and cleanup activities, among others. Rwanda has been participating in the United Nations peacekeeping operations for 20 years. Adam Squizera, RwandaTV News.
Thank you, Adams. Now to health matters. Over 700 experts in non-communicable diseases are in Rwanda for a 3-day international conference to address the root causes of non-communicable diseases and create programs that can make large-scale change for the largest group of people. William Evans has more on this.
Experts have said that non-communicable diseases are among the biggest causes of death, especially in low-income countries. For 3 days, over 700 experts from 72 countries will gather in Kigali to deliberate on how to create more policies and programs that can cause a big change in tackling non-communicable diseases.
NCDs is the biggest problem that takes the lives of most people all over the world, and also South in Africa. And the thing in low and middle income countries is that normally more people die over it in high income countries because the awareness is not high enough and the governments are not putting enough money into it to be able to diagnose it and to treat it early enough to save lives. Well, I want to congratulate you because actually you've done a lot in Rwanda compared with many other countries. And what I've learned today again, how you also are doing it locally with the small hospitals out there, and you're also engaging health workers, volunteers, to be able to reach out to people, and also the people that are poor, to make the distance to get to a local hospital not too long and for them to afford it. So it's still a long way to go, but you are on the right track.
World over, excessive tobacco and alcohol consumption have been marked as the major non-communicable disease risk factors. Dr. Francois Uwinkindi says that Rwanda is making good progress and that the recently introduced taxes on both alcohol and cigarettes will help drop the risk further.
Tobacco smoking, excessive alcohol consumption, these are one of the two major NCD risk factors. So if you look at where we are now in Rwanda, we would say that we have done a great job in terms of reducing tobacco smoking due to different regulations and laws, limiting tobacco smoking, but also we were talking about the recent cabinet resolution on tobacco. And we think with this increase of tobacco, taxation, again, people that are smoking, the number of people that are smoking will also decrease, especially those that are starting smoking, because tobacco accessibility will be reduced, and then some people will quit smoking, but also those who will start smoking will also, the number will go down.
Mr. Alphonse Marushimana, the Executive Director of Rwanda Non-Communicable Diseases Alliance, says that Rwanda has been chosen to co-host this global event because it already has programs in place to address non-communicable diseases.
There were some targets that were set at global level, and Rwanda is on lead implementing those targets, and there is a good progress that others can learn. So that's why even Rwanda was chosen to be the co-hosting country, like hosting country for Global NCD Forum.
70% of global deaths are attributed to non-communicable diseases, with 82% occurring in low-income countries, but up to 80% of these diseases are preventable. William Evans, Mtabazi, RwandaTV News.
Still on the health sector, after the Ministry of Health announced that in the coming days, certain diseases, including cancer, will be covered under the community-based health insurance known as Mutuelle de Santé, some patients have expressed relief, saying this decision gives them hope as the cost of treatment has long been beyond their reach. We have details on this story. Felicien Rambura has been receiving treatment for colon cancer at the University Teaching Hospital of Kigali for 4 years. However, he says the treatment is costly, as many patients have to cover the full expenses out of pocket.
How long will it take them to pay off the 9 million? For example, I have undergone surgery 3 times now. For someone who is poor, unemployed, and solely dependent on farming, especially in this unpredictable climate, where it is difficult to produce enough for the market, paying for treatment becomes nearly impossible. When they can't afford the cost, they have no choice but to sit and wait for the worst. However, cancer patients receiving treatment at Butaro Hospital are provided with medication and meals, but must cover the cost of diagnostic tests and other expenses, which they say remain financially burdensome. Considering the numerous tests required, the cost of treatment is extremely high. Before starting medication, several tests must be conducted, which are very expensive. On top of that, there are transportation costs. Since I began treatment, I believe I have spent more than 1 million Rwandan francs. The cabinet meeting held on January 17, 2025, approved the inclusion of 14 additional medical services under the community-based health insurance, also known as Mutuelle de Santé, which covers approximately 92% of Rwandans, including cancer treatment. Patients and healthcare providers have welcomed this decision as a win-win, noting that the financial burden had become overwhelming for many. The inclusion of cancer treatment under Mutuelle de Santé is a great relief for us, as it will provide significant support. We sincerely thank the government for this important initiative. Elad Rugengamanzi, the Director General of Butaro Hospital, says that including cancer treatment under the community-based health insurance will ease the financial burden on patients, reduce overcrowding at treatment centers, and make access to care more convenient. We receive a high number of patients. In 2024 alone, we registered 2,000 new cancer patients, not including those already under treatment, on medication, or those coming for regular monitoring. This is truly good news, as the inclusion of cancer treatment under Mutuelle de Santé will make care more accessible. Rwandans will no longer have to travel long distances to Butaro Hospital for treatment, as medication may also become available at CHUK, RMH, or CHUB. The Ministry of Health states that cancer treatment will be covered under the community-based health insurance starting in June 2025. Now to economic matters. Economic analysts affirm that the availability of the Chinese yuan in Rwanda should be sufficient, as some traders who source goods from China struggle to obtain the currency locally when making purchases. Prince Manzi takes us through.
Traders importing from China elaborate on the loss they face due to fast converting their funds into multiple currencies. We retail from China, but the issue is that we take our Rwandan francs, we convert them into dollars, and we retail in yuan. Due to the increase of the dollar value, if you are planning to return in a month and you are supposed to earn 1,000, for instance, from a shoe, as a benefit, it is not there definitely, and this affects your business. These traders affirm that this directly affects local market prices due to exchange rate fluctuations, hence requesting that if the yuan were readily available in Rwanda, it would help in curbing the increase of these prices. Dr. Rusa Bagirisha, an economic expert, concurs. We trade 80% in China. Why don't we have yuan in Rwanda? Yuan are even highly in need than dollars. If you need a car or even petroleum, it can all be found by paying in yuan. Why do we need dollars? The Minister of Trade and Industry, Prudence Sebahizi, reiterates that one of the viable solutions to address this issue is to increase Rwanda's exports to international markets. As the dollar increases, it not only affects Rwanda's currency, but other currencies as well. The only solution is to increase our export, because when you import, you sell the foreign currency, and when you export, it is the other way around. This is the greatest solution in addressing this pressure. The National Institute of Statistics of Rwanda demonstrates that in the third quarter of last year, Rwanda's exports increased by 77.86% compared to the same period in 2023. On the other hand, Rwanda's imports rose by 36.39%. China is among the top 5 countries that Rwanda exports to, alongside the United Arab Emirates, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Luxembourg, and the United Kingdom.
Alo, waramutse shiri wanjye.
Utekereza ko guhora wivuganya n'umushu aribyo birenze? Natwe niko tubibona. Ubona nta cyakurutira kugaragaza impano yawe. Niko bimeze.
So guys, uyu munsi tugiye kuganira ku gaseke. Agaseke njye gafite byinshi. Kamari, ese wowe kakumariye iki? Manudi. Halo Manudi, niba iki uri kunkura mu kazi? Hero mabusha, byahiye kandi noneho bimeze neza cyane. Ukuntu biri no guhumura. Ako Manudi, urumva nakumva ko ibyo bihumura koko?
Ubona nta cyakurutira umwuga wawe. Erega, natwe niko tubibona. Dushyigikiye buri kimwe agaciro mu buzima bwawe na irekure nshya. Buri wese arahishiwe, wikwisondeka. Kanda akanyenyeri 140 urwego, uhitemo agaseke kawe ka packs zo guhamagara. Cyangwa akanyenyeri 345 urwego, uhitemo bando za internet uryoherwe n'umuvuduko wa 4G.
Welcome back. You are still watching RTV News. Now to matters making headlines globally. Pakistan rolled out the red carpet on Wednesday for Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who will jointly hold the 7th session of the Pakistan-Turkey High-Level Strategic Operation Council with Pakistani Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif during his brief visit. VOA has the details.
Pakistan is welcoming Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan after 5 years. The two allies are holding their highest-level dialogue at a critical time in the Middle East. The fall of the Assad regime in Syria has strengthened Ankara's position in the region, but it has also put Turkey in direct competition with Israel, whose troops have advanced into Syrian territory.
Turkey understands that increasing defense and strategic ties with countries like Pakistan and other established middle-sized defense power are even more of interest for Turkey and Turkish interests. Sharing bilateral defense production, technologies, and learning is a key aspect.
The civil war in Syria also deeply impacted militancy in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Fighters from these countries fought alongside Syrian militias. But Islamic State Khorasan, or ISIS-K, a regional offshoot of the terror outfit ISIS, has brought more violence to the two South Asian neighbors. With Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, a US-designated foreign terrorist organization now ruling Syria, security observers say Ankara and Islamabad need help from each other to manage non-state actors.
With Shia militias as well as movement from various non-state actors from the Sunni militias as well, moving into Syria, and now once the conflict has subsided, their ultimate return and its impact on the region is going to play a tremendous amount of role.
Plans to boost trade and investment are on the table, with Turkish corporate leaders joining Erdogan on the trip. Bilateral trade hovers around $1.5 billion annually, despite past pledges to increase it. Pakistan and Turkey's struggling economies present opportunities for cooperation in key areas, experts say.
One is construction and infrastructure. Turkey's companies are already here. They're investing in housing, they're investing in roads, they're investing in urban projects. Energy is one key area where we can connect. The second biggest thing. The third one is, of course, again, Turkey has mastered into it, and we are getting into it, and we've got a lot of potential in that area, is basically tourism.
Experts say Washington will closely monitor how strategic ties, particularly the ongoing defense production cooperation between Pakistan and Turkey, evolve after this visit. Sara Zaman, VOA News, Islamabad.
To more news, Russian-born fashion designer Dasha Pomeranz tells stories with the clothing she creates. Her latest collection is a tribute to women who were forced to leave their native countries and start a new life in the United States. VOA once more.
For the past 3 years, Russian-born fashion designer Dasha Pomeranz has split her time between New York and Washington. Before that, she had spent over 11 years in London after moving there from Moscow. It was her life in the United States, however, that inspired her to create a new collection dedicated to immigration and women.
I realized I'm surrounded by immigrant women, my kids' friends' parents, my colleagues. They all had these amazing life stories. So I decided to collect them and turn them into skirt designs.
Pomeranz's latest collection of skirts, The Threads of Migration, is dedicated to some of the immigrant women she has met during her life in the U.S. Among them is an Ethiopian journalist who was arrested while covering elections at home, a Jewish woman from the Soviet Union escaping anti-Semitism, a Bolivian woman who grew up with domestic violence. One of the skirts was inspired by Vera Lyalko, an immigrant from Kyiv who moved to the U.S. in the late 1990s and now provides support to her fellow Ukrainians back home as they fight to hold ground against Russian forces.
Dasha found out I have a foundation called Help Citizens of Ukraine. Through this foundation, I help Ukrainians, mostly with medication. I work with a number of hospitals here, and they give me medications I can donate to Ukraine.
Virginia-based Afghan artist Sugra Husseini also shared her story with Pomeranz. In Kabul, Husseini advocated for women's rights and access to education. But in 2016, she started receiving threats and decided to leave Afghanistan for the U.S.
The Taliban that is in power right now, even that time, they was not happy with my activity, my art activity, and then talking about women and women's rights. And then they wanted to kidnap me, kill me, and then to be a good example for other people or for other women.
Pomeranz is working to add more stories and designs to her collection as she prepares for a spring fashion show in New York.
There will be women from Haiti talking about what had happened there. It's incredible learning people's stories. There will be Somali women telling their stories too.
Pomeranz does more than share immigrant women's stories. Part of the proceeds from online sales of her designs go to various foundations supporting refugee women. Corinne Befradjian, VOA News, Washington.
And this story brings us to the end of tonight's bulletin, but before we leave, a reminder of the key stories that made the edition. On Wednesday, President Paul Kagame concluded his official visit to Qatar, where he held high-level talks with the Emir of Qatar, His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. Rwanda asserts that the claims filed by the DRC at the African Court on Human and People's Rights perpetuate a pattern of misrepresentation and externalizing its internal challenges. On the international scene, Pakistan rolled out the red carpet on Wednesday for Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who is in this country for an official visit. And this marks the end of tonight's bulletin. On behalf of the entire news team, we wish you a productive week ahead. Goodbye.